Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1059, 1059, Sunday, March 1st, 2020. Oh, I like the sound of that. March 1st. For those of us who live in this part of the country where we have 4 seasons, the word January and February, it just sounds cold. And just being able to say the word March, it just feels warmer. And actually we have some warm weather coming up this week. We've been pretty cold the last 2 or 3 days. But I think we have some warm weather coming up this week, so it's not too far away. They're playing baseball down in Florida, and it won't be long. So let's go ahead and get to the news of the day. Of course, almost all the news today has to do with the big event down in South Carolina, and of course, as most of you have heard by now, Biden won in very big fashion, which means that my prediction was completely wrong. I don't know that I've been that wrong about a prediction. I can't remember the last time I missed something that bad. So I've been saying the last couple days that I thought it would be Biden and Sanders first and second, but I thought that it would be closer. I thought it would be pretty tight because just watching Biden is just no energy, nobody showing up to his rallies, the gaffes, the surge of Bernie, the fact that just all these things you put them together, and it certainly looked like Biden was not going to do very well. But I was wrong. Biden did extremely well. Extremely well. Now, as I'm coming to you, it's about 9 o'clock in the evening Eastern Standard Time on Saturday night. But, as soon as the polls closed, I think it was at 6:30 our time here, as soon as the polls closed, they announced Biden won. They knew that from exit polling. So they knew he won. They just didn't know how big. But now here we are. It's about 9 o'clock, and they're still obviously counting votes, but they know at this point roughly where Biden is. So I have some actual numbers for you here in just a second. But just kind of a general evaluation that I have at this point. Obviously, I was very surprised that Biden won by such a large margin. But then again, when I look at the fact that last 2016 election, if you remember, the Rotten Reverend Clinton just destroyed Bernie Sanders all throughout the South. Not just South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, all those southern states. The Rotten Reverend Clinton just whacked Sanders. So he didn't do well in the South, but there had been a lot of talk in the last couple of weeks how he had really they're talking about the fact that over the last couple of years, he has actually spent some work trying to get Latina and black voters in the South. And they expected that would be a factor, on top of the fact that Biden simply didn't have a lot of money to raise money there. But it appears that the biggest factor in the South Carolina race was the endorsement by James Clyburn, which he's, of course, a black Democrat. He's one of the most popular Democrats, if not the most popular Democrat politician in the state of South Carolina, and 60% of people who voted say that they were persuaded by his endorsement. So you can imagine, I don't know if his endorsement would have given Bernie that much success, but certainly the endorsement by Clyburn seemed to close the deal for Biden, and he did win with I think it's right around 50% of the vote. So it's a huge victory for Biden, a lot bigger win than I thought even possible. So that really changed the dynamics, or at least it appears to change the dynamics. We have to keep in mind, Bloomberg wasn't on the ballot, but we have some other information to look at here in a minute, and it may show that that may not have as big of an effect as we thought it may as well. So this thing's going to get very interesting. It still should be probably the most important thing for me to note out of the South Carolina Democratic debate is the fact that regardless of who won on the Democratic ticket in South Carolina or how big they won, regardless of that fact, Trump's going to win South Carolina by probably double digits. So Trump's going to win South Carolina. That's the bottom line. But as far as the Democrats are concerned, the question now is, is this going to affect Super Tuesday? So we already know that Biden only had about $1 million to spend in advertising in the 20 states that will vote on Super Tuesday. And that includes big states like California and Texas. $1 million over 20 states, especially with California and Texas being in the mix. That's not much considering Bloomberg has spent 35 to 40 million in those 20 states. Bernie has spent money in those states, and Bernie is leading in quite a few of those states, including Texas and California. Double-digit leads, huge leads in Texas and California for Bernie. Those are delegate-rich states. And remember, this is a race for delegates. It's a contest for delegates. Now, the thing is, for Biden, even though he had a big victory in South Carolina, anyone who got above 15% is going to collect delegates. Now, obviously, Biden is going to get the majority of them, but there's only like 54 total delegates in South Carolina, and Biden is so even with the South Carolina win, Bernie will still be leading in delegates going into Super Tuesday. Biden will be second, just behind him. So probably the win in South Carolina will help Biden, but he'll probably do pretty good. I think Georgia maybe, or North Carolina. A couple other southern states do vote on Super Tuesday. But those are small states, and there's just not a lot of delegates there. And again, these are proportioned delegates. That's why, to me, it's going to be a brokered convention. I can't see anybody. Biden's too far behind already, and we know he's not going to do as well as Sanders in California or Texas. So he's just simply never going to catch up in the delegate fight. So even if Biden manages to outdo Bloomberg and succeed to become the Democratic Establishment Party candidate, it will be he and Bernie that arrive at the convention. But Bloomberg can afford to stay in it. But if he does, he continues to split the vote with Biden. At some point, there's going to be pressure on either Biden or Bloomberg to get out. Because as long as they're splitting the establishment vote between them, Bernie is just collecting delegates. And those two and the establishment candidate will show up at the convention with far fewer delegates than Bernie. And it will make it very difficult to cheat him. But they'll do it anyway, if they have to. I mean, that decision's already been made, I'm sure. So, anyhow, let's take a look at some numbers that we have coming out, and it's still pretty early. The polls just closed a couple hours ago, so these are still fresh numbers, but they'll change, but probably not by that much. So it looks like Biden's going to capture about 50%, maybe a little over 50% of the vote in South Carolina. Bernie is going to end up with around 18. Steyer is going to end up with 12. But now he already has just announced, just an hour ago, he announced that he was dropping out of the race. So Steyer is getting out. Steyer's getting out. He spent a boatload of money and didn't really have much to show for it. So Steyer is out of the game, but he did come in third. And spending $30 million and only coming in third is, that's pretty bad. So, yeah, I can understand why he would get out. He just isn't going to waste any more money. I mean, the guy knows he's wasting a lot of money. He's rich, but he's not that rich. He's not Bloomberg rich. Then we have Buddy Fudge. Buddy Fudge came in at 7%. 7%. I believe that will probably end him. Maybe he'll not officially announce that he's out of it until after Super Tuesday, but barring something extraordinary happening on Super Tuesday, in other words, him picking up, some serious delegates, and I don't see that happening, but assuming that did happen, he might stay in, but I think that we're looking probably at the end of Buddy Fudge. Now, Elizabeth Warren has talked about, she got 6% coming in fourth place. She's also just announced that she's going to start taking Super PAC money. Now, as long as she stays in the race, she's probably taken some votes away from Bernie. But you can see that in the last two debates, she laid off of Bernie and attacked Bloomberg. I think that Warren is trying to be Bernie's VP. That's what it looks like to me. Then we had Klobuchar coming in fifth. At 3%, I think that probably ends her day. I don't think she has the money to advertise on Super Tuesday either. The only two people really left, now that Steyer's out, who can throw money into Super Tuesday, and by now you pretty much would have to have done that. It's possible that Biden is now going to tap into some new money, but I think I don't know if he'll have time. I mean, it's Super Tuesday, the vote's on Tuesday. So he's got 2 days to make media ad buys, to get the money transferred in his account, to get the money transferred to whoever he buys the ads from, to get the ads. Now he's probably got ads in the can. He'll just ship them to whoever. He might be able to target a few states and get some more ads ran, but it's going to pale in comparison to Bloomberg. And this is really the thing to focus on now. Bernie has locked up the progressive, very liberal, Marxist, commie, whatever. Okay, Bernie owns the far left. The issue now is who is going to be the establishment candidate. And it looks like it's down to Biden or Bloomberg. Now, it's looking like the reason that Biden is having some success now and probably did so well in South Carolina, and the reason why he might do actually a little better than we project on Super Tuesday is because the latest couple polls that are coming out for favorability are showing Bloomberg, his favorability is low. It's down in the 30% range. There's 2 different favorability polls that show Bloomberg not even cracking 30% in favorability, whereas Biden is over 40% in both of those polls. So Biden is still getting more favorability than Bloomberg. He just doesn't have any money. So will favorability outweigh money? That's going to be the question that will be answered on Super Tuesday. I think that what you could have, because I think Bloomberg will stay in it. I do. I don't think he'll drop out after Super Tuesday, even if he has a fairly poor showing. Because that's 1/3 of the delegates. There's 2/3 left, and he knows that Biden has no money. Now, if a bunch of money flows into Biden, then Bloomberg might reconsider, and that could very well happen. Certainly, Biden has bought himself another day in the fight, but you got to have money to stay in the fight. Whether or not this win in South Carolina translates into money, we're going to find out. But again, we talked about earlier that South Carolina, 60% of the voters in South Carolina said that the Clyburn announcement supporting Biden affected their vote. But here's another extraordinary number, and this is something I've talked about before. In South Carolina, only 11% of people 18 to 29 voted. This is what we see in every election. A lot of the Bernie Sanders enthusiasm, a lot of his campaign is based on these young college students and young people. But as we know from election after election after election, they just don't show up to vote. They show up to protest. They show up to have rallies. I don't know, maybe they think it's a good place to go meet chicks. Maybe they think it's where the party is. It's the Bernie rally. For whatever reason, these people show up to rallies, but they don't show up on election day. They don't show up to vote. They always come in with very low numbers, and these are lower than normal. Only 11% of 18 to 29-year-olds voted. That's very low. Bernie, his favorability in South Carolina is in the high 20s. So when you close in on these numbers, you see why Bernie got beat so bad, only getting 18% to Biden's 50. Only 11% of 18 to 29-year-olds voted. Bernie in South Carolina only has a favorability rating in the high 20s, 27, 28, 29, in the last couple of polls that they did in South Carolina leading up to the vote. He scores an average of like 27, 28. That's very, very low. Biden's was in the upper 30s and low 40s. So that was a factor. We also have a breakdown. We have Bernie only won in the 18 to 29 of the 11% who did vote in South Carolina. Of the black voters, 18 to 29, only it was 40 to 36. Biden getting 40%, Bernie getting 36% of black 18 to 29-year-olds. Now, among whites, this is where Bernie's strength is. And he did win 54% as compared to only 10% voting for Biden of the white voters 18 to 29. So 54 to 10 among white voters 18 to 29, 40 to 36 among black voters. So this shows you that Bernie Sanders does not play very well with young black voters, at least in South Carolina, and you can assume that's going to be true throughout the South. They kind of vote about the same way, a lot of those southern states. Now, of course, you're going to see something totally different when you get out into the California and the West Coast and places like that, Pacific Northwest. That'll flip. And again, only 11% of those voters coming out. So that right there, in a nutshell, tells you a lot about why Biden won so big. And it's a scary thought in a lot of ways. I mean, as damaging as Bernie would be to the top of the ticket, and that's why I want Bernie there. It's because the damage he will do to the down ballot. I want to win the House and pick up seats in the Senate. And the best way to guarantee that is Bernie at the top of the ticket. Biden, on the other hand, I think we'll still win the Congress back, but Biden will not be as damaging to the down ballot races as Bernie would be. But he'll get slaughtered in the general election because Trump will just destroy him in the debates. Bernie has, the latest polls show Bernie having a double-digit lead in the Super Tuesday states, which is why he's going to collect the most delegates and why he will be unstoppable. Bernie is going to arrive at the convention with the most delegates. That is, you can take that to the bank 100%. I see no way that is not going to happen. The only question is, it will be Biden or Bloomberg, and will they both stay in? Will Biden be able to attract the money to stay in the game? Bloomberg has the money. Or will someone at some point say, well, we took a shot at Biden. We thought he wasn't going to make it. But now, Mike, it's you that has to drop out. Because we can't have both of you, because Bernie is just running away with the delegates. And we got to take him out at the convention. And we don't want him to come in with a super big lead in delegates. It'll be much more difficult to screw him, which we're going to do. But I think that's kind of where it is. I think that the thinking here is that Bloomberg was brought in because they believed, Biden's going to fail. He's not going to make it. He's horrible. We got to get rid of Biden. And that's how we got Bloomberg in the first place. Remember that. So I don't think that there's this tremendous confidence because of this win in South Carolina. I don't think it tells us that Biden suddenly became a great candidate. It tells us that the rest of the field is super weak. And Bloomberg was not on the ballot. Had he been on the ballot, I think I don't think Biden would have won with 50% of the vote. I think they may have come closer to splitting. Biden probably still would have done better. He probably still would have won, and that would have probably given you a Biden and then Bernie and Bloomberg coming in second and third. So, but there's these polls that have been out there the last couple of days. They're taking a look at favorability ratings, and Bloomberg is not looking good in the favorability ratings. He also is in the 30% range, and none of these candidates have a favorability number that's over 50%. None of these. And these are the Democratic candidates in the Democratic primary. They don't have anyone in the field who can get over 50% of favorability in any of these polls. And that tells you that everyone's looking at these candidates. And obviously we know there's a split in the Democratic Party between the far left and the so-called moderates, which are still pretty far to the left to me. But there's obviously a split in the party. Bernie owns the left. He's got that wrapped up. That's not even a question. He's gonna take the left, and he's probably gonna win the majority of delegates. Certainly gonna win the majority of delegates. I don't think there's anything can be done to stop that. And that's gonna have a lot to do with the fact that you have all these other people competing for delegates, and unless they all drop out. And I'm not sure which one of those would drop out between Biden and Bloomberg. But one of those two are going to have to drop out, or Bernie is going to run away with it. And I think a lot of people believe that Biden would be done after South Carolina, but now after this kind of a win, he's obviously not going to be done. He's going to be there, And this is going to actually create a bigger quagmire. I think the party would probably like to have seen Biden not do well here. It would have made their job easy to pick up the phone tomorrow and tell him to get out. Now it's going to be much tougher to tell Biden to get out, because now he feels he's got momentum. But he may be finished off after Super Tuesday, because he still has no money. And maybe money will come flowing in, but that's going to be what will determine whether or not Biden goes forward after Super Tuesday. It'll come down to money. For Lundberg, it'll come down to whether or not the pressure by other people calling him, telling him to get out, because now it looks like Biden could be the guy, and you can't have both of them. You can't have them splitting the centrist vote between them while Bernie just runs away with the rest of the delegates. So this is the issue that they face. It'll be very interesting to see what happens on Tuesday, to see if this momentum stays with Biden, if he does better. But right now, just from the early polls that we're seeing, Bernie has very big double-digit leads in the two biggest states. A lot of delegates up there. Biden will probably win or come in at least first, maybe second. Because remember, Bloomberg is on the ballot now. From this point forward, Super Tuesday, Bloomberg is now on the ballot. So this is going to cut into Biden. And this is going to have an effect. I think we'll know after Super Tuesday where this is going to go. I do expect to see a couple people drop out. Of course, Steyer already dropped out. I think Buttigieg will probably drop out after Super Tuesday. Probably Elizabeth Warren. Klobuchar, definitely, she may drop out before Super Tuesday. So it's about, the field's about to be narrowed, but I still think you're definitely going to have Bernie. You're almost certainly going to have Bloomberg. And it looks like Biden may have bought himself at least a 48-hour reprieve until Super Tuesday. We will see whether or not he can sustain that and go on. In other news, Louie Gomer is now the second congressman to come out and talk about the death of Philip Haney. Now, the last time it was just a tweet, but this time Louie Gomer took to the House floor and actually gave a speech. Not a long speech, pretty short speech, just a couple minutes long. But in his speech, at the end of his speech, and he talked about his personal relationship. He was a friend of Phil Haney's, worked with him, I guess, in some respects. And he said that he had a pact with Haney that if one of them ever got suicided, that the other one would be committed to making sure that they would get the truth about what really happened, because they wouldn't commit suicide. They had a pact that they would not. He says at the end of his statement that Philip Haney was about to name names. He was about to name names, and then he ends up with a bullet in him. Well, I mean, Louie Gomer didn't come right out and say that there's some sort of a conspiracy or something going on here, such as Haney was murdered because of information he had that he was likely going to release. He doesn't come out and say it in that many words, but that's exactly what he's referring to and alluding to. And that's fairly powerful for a member of Congress to step up there on the floor of the House, because this stuff all goes in the record. So it's now on the record that Louie Gomer has basically stepped up and said, yeah, Haney was probably murdered because of what he knew, because of names he was going to drop, and that's why he is killed. It'd be interesting to find out if we get the truth here. You know, I don't think we will. I just don't think we will. I mean, I wish we could, but I just think the way the deep state operates, you know, and it's still in place, Mr. Barr. That's your deep state, Mr. Barr. I don't know if Mr. Barr knew Phil Haney, but he sounded like he was a pretty good man. I didn't know him, but everyone who did know him said he was a good man. He didn't deserve to get murdered because he was going to expose criminals in your department, Mr. Barr. But maybe this is a wake-up call to Attorney General Barr, because this is not something you can just ignore. He can ignore it publicly, but privately, he has to know there's something stinks about this. He knows it's going to be covered up by Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray, because now the FBI has been called in. Yeah, when you called in the FBI, that's pretty much where, when I saw the sheriff in the press conference, we've called in the FBI to help out. I thought, okay, well, there you go. Once the FBI is involved, you can forget it. because that organization is corrupt to the core. They're probably the ones who did it. So yes, that was an important statement by Louie Gomer on the House floor. We'll see if any other members of Congress step up to say anything like that, and we'll see how much people start questioning. I mean, as in like going privately to Attorney General Barr and having a meeting and saying, "Look, man, I knew this guy. He didn't commit suicide. Your FBI is investigating this along that sheriff's department. Do not come back and tell us that this was just a suicide, just like Epstein and everything else." People are getting tired of it. People are getting sick of it. We are not that stupid. So unless some high-level members of Congress show up in Barr's office and really apply the pressure and let him know that he's the head of a completely corrupt, rogue organization at the FBI and the DOJ, and God knows the scandals and the crimes and the horrific abuses of power by the intelligence community, and that goes back a very long time, and it covers a great many number of things that we just don't have time to go into, but I think most of you know what I'm talking about. Some of those events are in recent history. So I do think that I do hope that there'll be some pressure, because this stuff really has to come to an end. You know, it's getting bad. We also have a retired FBI agent, Basim Yosef, who was on the John Solomon podcast. And he, of course, ran the FBI Communications Analysis Unit from 2004 to 2014. Yosef told John Solomon that he's has very little to no doubt that the FBI spy programs were used for political spying or political espionage. And he talks about these programs, the same ones he's talking about are the ones that Snowden revealed, which is why they want him dead. The government, he says, has spent millions of dollars and has collected nearly 500 million records that were likely used for political purposes. So here's a fairly heavy hitter who was one of the overseers of all these intelligence spying programs, 10 years in that position, including all 8 years of the Obama administration, basically saying, yeah, they abuse their spying apparatus, not only just going after political opponents, but political espionage and framing people. And of course we know that from what happened. This is why Barr and Durham absolutely must deliver the goods. They absolutely cannot bobble this. They cannot fail. As I said before, if they do not blow the whistle on this and bring the criminals to justice, I think there's going to be a tremendous backlash. And these members of Congress, if they vote to reauthorize FISA, and this is coming up here in the next 2 weeks, if they vote to reauthorize FISA in the next 2 weeks, and there is no accountability for the abuses that we know occurred, I think there's going to be hell to pay for anyone who voted to continue the FISA court before they saw accountability. To me, this is the ultimate leverage that you have on Barr. Is to say, yeah, you say you need the FISA court, well, we need prosecutions. We're going to temporarily suspend the FISA court, and if you think it's real important, then you might want to get busy, because we are not going to sign on to it until we see people held accountable for the abuses that were committed. And we also need some explanation from the FISA court why they haven't taken action. They don't need to wait for Mr. Durham. They don't need to wait for Mr. Durham. They're obligated to hold in contempt the people who abused the system and lied to them. Yet they've done nothing. And the Chief Justice is the head of the FISA court. We've heard nothing from him. So I think there's leverage here. I certainly hope that members of Congress in leadership positions will use this leverage because, again, until you actually hold people accountable, none of the changes that they're going to make will matter. If people can break the laws and have no accountability, then why would making new laws or rules change anything? Well, it wouldn't. That's why some people are going to have to challenge Barr and leverage their position. And I'll be very disappointed in any member of Congress who votes to reauthorize the FISA court without some sort of a guarantee from Barr that, yes, don't worry, it's coming. That's what I need to hear. I need to hear Devin Nunes or Jordan or one of these guys I trust to be able to say, look, we talked to Barr, we told him what we thought, and he's assured us that Mr. Durham is going to get to the bottom of it and is going to hold people accountable. And by accountable, I mean serious prison time, coup d'etats, lying to the FISA court, destroying people's lives, all the things that they did. Needs to be severe accountability, not just for those criminals at the FBI and DOJ, but it's throughout various agencies in the government, including the CIA, as well as the entire Mueller team. The Mueller team is probably what they did was as bad as anything the rest of them did. As bad as Strzok and Page. Because the Mueller team knew on day one, when they took over that investigation, that it was total bullshit. And look what they did and how they treated people. Has to be accountability for Uncle Bob the executioner, all the corrupt people of the FBI and DOJ. There needs to be dozens and dozens of people going to prison. And I mean for significant periods of time. Aldrich Ames and Robert Hansen will rot in prison for the rest of their lives. They essentially got lifetime sentences. What did they do? They sold some secrets to the Russians. What did these guys do? They tried to carry out a coup d'etat. Lied to the FISA court. Destroyed people's lives, misusing the tools of the intelligence community and law enforcement. What they did, I think, is just as bad. And the Russians, what these guys did, could have done far more damage to the country than what selling these secrets to the Russians did. I mean, what Hansen and Ames primarily did. Now, Ames was giving up information about military secrets. Hansen was outing spies, double agents, agents that the Russians believed were their guys that were actually working for us. And that was damaging. But I think what Uncle Bob the executioner, the FBI under Comey and McCabe, the CIA with Brennan and Clapper, the Obama administration officials, Power, Rice, and all these people, the FISA courts, I mean, this is much bigger, in my opinion, and deserves, these people deserve, in my opinion, a lot of these people, life sentences for treason. So, anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Look forward to being back with you tomorrow for more TowerGate, and see you then. Have a good night. Bye.